Welcome everyone to part 3 of our conversation with Forrester analyst Joseph Blankenship and Dr. Chase Cunningham on security operations and security orchestration automation in response, or SOAR. Gentlemen, in this segment, what I'd like to do is, have a little more of a rubber hit the road type conversation and really examine how automation and orchestration can help in a ransomware scenario, right? I mean, we chose ransomware because it was, is, and I think it's a safe prediction to say will continue to be one of the more successful attacks out there that continue to cause some serious damage to organizations of all sizes. So Chase, maybe I'll start with you. I mean, again, I'm sure you've talked to customers who suffered ransomware attacks or consult with Forrester about how to be better prepared for an attack. I heard in a podcast, by the way, a CISO that's being facetious and said, you know what I want to do? I'm not going to spend anything on defense and vulnerabilities, just put all my money on cyber insurance, right? Which is an interesting strategy, but probably not one that you recommend. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about ransomware and how you can put orchestration and automation to use in that type of scenario.
Yeah, I mean, well, number one, that guy, I hope he's polishing his resume because he's probably going to need to look for a new gig pretty soon, unless he's going to go work for an insurance company, which then well done. But I mean, the ransomware stuff, if you look at ransomware, ransomware is honestly shouldn't even be considered to be malicious software. Most of what goes wrong with ransomware is that it's using processes and capabilities that are built into the operating system of machines to proliferate an attack, and the attack spreads like wildfire, and then they lock down files and whatnot, and you go from there. If you look at Maersk and Norsk Hydro, like it was one infection that started and crawled across the network, and I think the biggest number was like 300,000 machines in 18 hours. So the problem is not that you have a way to necessarily negate that infection, because it's native, it's part of the operating system, and it's probably going to happen. It's almost like cancer within a human body. It's just a malignant sort of cell that goes rogue and then spreads. If you don't have a capability to fix the physics of that problem at scale, then you will get your lunch eaten, because when ransomware infects, it doesn't infect one machine. It infects one machine, just like cancer or something else, or wildfire, and just spreads. And then you're left with a giant brick of a network, which is the problem. The ability to have a capability to isolate, manage, maintain, and control stuff at scale is where the difference lies. You want to be able to put that fire out by putting fire lines across things and then deal with it. It's impossible to try and prevent and think you'll ever be 100% perfect on prevention. This is about response at scale. The only way to do that is with operational capability that works at scale.
Excellent. JB, kind of a same question to you. I don't know if you've had conversations with customers that were specifically around, hey, how do I leverage automation? Like you said, I think with ransomware, the speed of response is really key. I mean, we all do put in the most reasonable investment that we can come up with in prevention, knowing full well that obviously never negates the need to detect quickly and respond quickly. So yeah, same question to you.
Yeah, I think the big difference, Nimmy, in ransomware versus the mentality of defending against data breach, right? So if you think about data breach, we always think about the low and slow attack, right? An attacker gains a foothold. The attacker may escalate privileges on a device. The attacker may start emulating one of the user accounts that the attacker's taken over, and then it takes a while for us to find those behaviors and then react to it, and then hopefully we've stopped it before they can either conduct a data exfiltration or some other activity, right? That's sort of the luxury of time, and in a lot of those investigations, we actually, the defenders actually may even realize, hey, we have an attacker in the network, but we're going to observe this person and try to figure out what their, TTPs are before we kick them out of the network, try to figure out what this is all about, where it came from, and then what to do about it going further. So that's a luxury of time. Ransomware doesn't afford the luxury of time, right? It is like to Chase's point, it's a malignancy. as soon as the first device falls over and the second device and the third device and, logarithmic, from there, apparently I cannot talk today. It just goes off like wildfire and requires automation. If you don't have the ability to quickly, shut the gates, you'll end up in a situation like some of the ones that Chase that you referenced, right? Some of the kind of really, and here in the city of Atlanta, Georgia, where I am, we obviously had a hell of a ransomware incident several years ago. So if this tells you anything about the need for zero trust and ransomware defense, so somehow the city network got infected. It took down courts. It erased videos, dash cam videos from police cars. It took away evidence for crimes that were being investigated in the courts. And for some reason, they had to shut down the free Wi-Fi at the airport. Now, I want you to think about what kind of a network architecture says free Wi-Fi at the airport, courts, police dash cam, and water bills are all impacted by the same incident. That's about $17 million of remediation at this point, right? So if you don't have the ability, first of all, to segment that network properly, which obviously we did not here in the city of Atlanta, you've got to be able to quickly identify, oh my God, we've got a problem. Let's start shutting things off and responding to this as quickly as possible, and then get back to a state of normalcy. And in a giant network like that, you cannot do that if you're trying to just do it with a handful of people and doing that in a very manual fashion. You need tools.
Right. And I think one of the things that always kind of surprised me a little bit is that, I think the low and slow attacks get a lot of PR, right? I mean, it's always a good story with it. Oh, the bad guys were in the network for 12 months, right? And exfiltrating data. But I think for most organizations out there that, probably are not going to be the target for a targeted attack, it is really those, kind of the opposite of low and slow, right? The fast and high attacks like ransomware that, somebody's gonna, download something they shouldn't download or click a link they shouldn't click, and the counter starts. And then the ability to detect quickly and respond quickly is really what's gonna, make a difference if you're gonna have a terrible day or not. And we see, by the way, at Siemplify, we have packaged use cases, right? What we've done over the years of working with companies is say, okay, here's the things that every new customer built a playbook for this. So we kind of package it up with a use case that you can deploy, you can tweak if you need to. And phishing is probably number one, but close behind is ransomware as well, right? To do if you detect something suspicious, how can you automate as much of the process of determining that it's malicious, and if you have, also responding, right? And I think what is also statistics that I've always found interesting is the amount of time it takes between a company determined that something was malicious and until they carry out the response, right? That can take several hours, sometimes several days. And that is where people say, well, I'm not going to trust a machine to take response. And that certainly has merit in some cases. But even if the decision to take a response is not an automated run, right? An intelligent human being makes it, the response sequence can definitely be automated, and you're right, and you can cut back on that response time.
Yeah, hey, Nimmy, that's actually one thing that we covered several years ago as part of Zero Trust at Forrester too. We came up with this concept of rules of engagement, right? For different types of attacks and different confidence levels of attacks and different risks, right? So kind of the idea of rules of engagement, just like I think Chase was alluding to before, right? It's not enough just to say, that someone's sick. You have to be prescriptive about how to go and treat the disease. Same thing with rules of engagement. It's not enough to go by and say, wow, that's a problem. That's an infected machine. Someone should do something about that. So the rules of engagement model basically says, if we have high confidence that we have an observable, right? We actually have an incident, a live incident. What are we going to do about it, right? So we have high confidence. It's going to have high impact. Let's take an automated action to stop it. If it's something we've never seen before, we don't have high confidence in it. Let's give that to an analyst so the analyst can quickly figure out what's going on, learn from it, and then, and then stop it. So I think it's really important that you kind of establish what those rules of engagements are. And for ransomware is one of those where you really don't have time to mess around. You're much better taking the wrong action and stopping something than waiting to see what's going to happen, and letting like a infection take its course.
Sure. Chase, maybe I'll let you close it out with any additional thoughts here.
Well, I mean, I think the only useful thing I might add is that it shouldn't be one of these things where people rely on the legacy approach of I've got antivirus software running, so therefore I must be protected. It's kind of proven that it's not really a good way to approach the problem. I mean, you can run around in a battlefield with a bulletproof vest on. If you catch one in the head, it's a problem. It's just not going to be the correct approach to deal with it. And you should be in a spot where you remember that this is a likelihood of 100%. It's just a matter of when, and it shouldn't end the business. It should be something you can respond to, but you can't respond to it if you don't have the capability to do that at scale. A one and done, like JB was saying, not enough. This is something that's going to require automated capabilities to actually fix the problem.
Excellent. Thank you, gentlemen. Stay tuned for the fourth and final part of our discussion. In the last segment, we'll actually discuss the role of security orchestration, automation, and response in a service provider environment. So for all of you out there that are either service providers or rely on service providers, make sure to check out the fourth and final segment. Thank you, gentlemen.